Hi there, let's take a look at Kreation.Arduino.Playmaker, which is a new package that combines the Kreation.Arduino Unity support for Arduino with Playmaker so that you can have actions in Playmaker to control the Arduino, as well as events that can be pushed up from Kreation.Arduino into the Playmaker finite state machine. And this makes it easier to control LEDs and trigger events from changes of pin input values, which you can obviously use switches and things like buttons for on your Arduino. So here we have a blank project. What I have on the left here is a magnifier. See, it's flying. Anyway, sorry. Magnifier, right. Okay, so the magnifier is just to make it easier when I'm going to the menus that you can actually read what's happening, or if I go look at the inspector, let me just clear that noise. You can actually read it. That's the hope. And then over here we have, let me just try to arrange this a bit better. Here we have the space to put the Playmaker finite state machine, and here we can define events and things like that. I've noticed the magnifier though moves quite a bit as I move the mouse around, so that could get a little sickening to look at. So I hope you don't get motion sickness. Anyway, let's see how this goes. Okay, so first of all, right, this is blank, so we need the Creation Playmaker Arduino object. So I click this, and we get this object here. Now this knows how to talk to the Arduino, and it supports Playmaker. Right, so that's part of this new package. Over here we can see this is what it's called, Arduino for Playmaker. It's just an object like any other object in Unity, and it's got this custom inspector. So here I can change the name if I want to. I have no reason to want that, but I could. Here I can detect the Arduino as long as it's plugged in, which mine's an Arduino Uno. So if I press this button here, it tells me that it detected the board correctly. So we have a few sections. So this is the Arduino connection information. This is the Playmaker fields, which are sort of optional. The only reason why you need this is if you want input from the Arduino to create events for Playmaker. So you can have input coming in creating events. At the moment it only supports digital in, so like switches or buttons, but in the future it could support analog input as well. We have pin configuration fields, or group. So here we have all of the pins. When you do the detect board, and here now the buttons become rescan board, but when you first detect your board, it basically loads all these pin definitions into this configuration, and this just gives you an idea of what everything's capable of. We can see here everything's set to a default of input. So we have digital input for pins 2 through 13, and then pin 14 through 18 have analog input, which roughly matches, well actually matches quite closely what's on the physical board. And this is all detected from the Arduino. As long as the board has standard Fermata installed, this will work. And if it doesn't, then it won't connect, and you'll see errors. It'll actually say that it can't detect the board because it's looking for that standard Fermata software on the Arduino. There's a video that tells you how to install that. Okay, so now I have LEDs on a number of these pins, and I have a pin that I've wired up to use as an input. So now I don't need pin 2, so I can hit this minus button to delete that row. I do have pin 3. Now that's an LED, so let's set that up. Here I can type in just a label for what I want to call it, or what I think of it. So I'm just going to call it LED 3, and notice how here this says OK, because this name is now unique. So in order for this row to be OK, a few things have to be true. This has to be a valid pin number. If I put -3, then this is invalid, and you can see here that it can't tell me what mode. It doesn't give me the options to change the mode or anything. So I know that the pin number is invalid. If I get rid of the minus, it's valid again, and I can choose modes. See, so and we can see that this particular pin supports servos, PWM, digital output, input by pull-up resistor, or digital input. Okay, let's finish the rest of them. Pin 4 I'm not using, pin 5 I am using. Let's call that LED 5 and make it digital output. Actually, I need to make the top one digital output as well. Pin 6 I am using, make that digital output and call that LED 6. Pin 7 is digital input. Let's call that switch, so it's like a switch. And for the moment, let's get rid of the others. So I just hit delete on all of them, or minus till they're all gone. And now, because there are no rows that have any errors on them, this whole configuration is ready to use. Okay, that's wonderful. Now, in order to make anything happen though, I still need a state machine, so I can right click and do add FSM. And what we can do here is let's make a unity, like a button to appear on the screen here that I can click on and then make the LEDs turn on. So say LED 3, then 5, then 6. And so they basically just take turns turning on. So let's do that. So I go game object, UI. I'm going to make, if I just make a button, that should create a canvas for me, but I'll do panel. Now, because we're dealing with the panel, I'll press F and we can see the whole panel like this. So our screen's looking a bit, where are you? Go to the game, free aspect. Let's make it 4:3. Okay, that's better. Okay, now we need some buttons. So we have 3 LED, in fact, no, it's one button really all I need. I might have an off to turn everything off and then have another one basically to go next, in which case I'll just cycle through them. Let's do that. Okay, so we add buttons. So let's right click on, okay, that didn't do what I expected. Game object, UI, button. Okay, so let me zoom in a bit there. Let's change that. So let's just think about how we want to tackle this. Alright, so we could make this a massive button at the top. I'm a big fan for that. Let's go massive. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to pin my button to the center at the top of the, in fact, you know what, not even that. Let's make it so it's at the top and stretches for the width of the screen. That's what I want. Now, here we've got all these distances from the edge. So for instance, if I make that 0, it should go to the top. Now the pivot is in the center of the button, which is why half the button's hanging out the top. So let's make this 1, which will put the edge of the button at the top of the button, sorry, the pivot point to the top of the button. So which is now why when I make this distance 0, you can see here there's nothing between the top of the button and the top of the panel. And the top of this panel represents the screen. If I hit play, this panel will take up the entire screen. Okay, so now if we want to make it so there's no gap, so this 48 pixels represents this gap here. This right hand side, see here it even tells me these 600 pixels here represent that gap. So if I zero that out, you can see instantly that that's adjusting the button accordingly, and the button is now the full height, full width. And let's make this say 100 high. And now this text looks really, really small. So let's fix that. Go to text, and button is not what it is. It's turn everything off. Turn all LEDs off. With an exclamation mark, of course. Maybe let's try a font size of 30, maybe 35. 38. That's better. Okay, and we could even change the color of the text to be some sort of red. It should be angry. There we go. Okay, so this is, change this, let's call it BTN all off. Let's add another button, and this one can be in the center, that's fine. So, okay, that's actually a child of the canvas, not that it matters. All right, fine. So let's add another button, right? Let's make it, so by default it will be, yes, it's right in the center of the canvas. So let's make this a bit wider. Let's try for, say, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it so its left side will be 10% in from the left side of the screen, so that's 0.1 up to 90%, so that's 0.9. And if I zero that distance here and here, that's now from 10% here through to 10% there, which is, this is the 90% mark. And as all screens, regardless of the screen size, it will always adapt to be that. This is the height part, so let's do the same sort of thing here. Say, I don't know, 40% to 50% works. So from min, make it to 0.4 through to max of 0.5. And if we make the zero from a zero distance to the top and bottom, now that's exactly the case. And let's change the text. And let's just say, let's call it cycle to next. LED, why not? Let's be clear about what we're talking about here. Let's make this 35. That's not bad. Let's go with maybe some kind of green, something kind of cheerful. All right, thank you. Maybe a green on a darker background. So if we go back to here, we can make the color maybe some kind of gray. How about that? I like that. That works. Okay, so let's call the button something more meaningful. BTN next. Terrific. Okay, so there's our user interface. Let's set up a state machine. Add FSM. Okay, so now we need, so let's say that by default everything will be off, and then we will have our cycle to next. So we're going to need two events. We need, I'm going to go for capitals for these event names, all dash off, meaning that this button was clicked for turn all LEDs off, and then the other one will be next LED, and that means the other button here, the cycle button, was hit. Okay, let's change the name of this to be all off. Okay, and now what we can do here is we can drag in some actions. Now let me just go right, let me click on our, where are we, Arduino. So here we have our 3 LED labels. We need to use these labels to change things. So from, right, I can see what I've done. Okay, that's great. Sorry, while I was still on this button, I started defining a state machine. That's not what I wanted at all. So let me just clean that up by removing the Playmaker FSM from there. That's not what I had in mind. Back here, I'm going to keep my FSM on the Arduino. No real reason, it just makes things easier. Okay, so now our vents will still be defined. No, they're not. Okay, so I need to do that. Let's do that. So all off and next LED. Okay, let's come back. Let's do that. come on. And this will be all LEDs off. And now we can drag our action in here. Make this LED 3 is the first one. Now notice how that had an error message. See here it's telling me that the board Arduino for Playmaker does not have a pin with the label of LED, right? Because if you look over here, the labels are LED 3, LED 5 and LED 6 all switch. So that it needs to be one of those, and when it is, it's happy. This means on or off, so we want it to be off, and I need to add actions for the other two LEDs because we want to turn LED 3 off, we want to turn LED 5 off, and we want to turn LED 6 off. Okay, so when we are in this state, all three LEDs will be off. Easy. Now let's make another state, and this one will be for LED 3 on. We'll make another, so let's do that. LED 3 on. Let's keep making states. This will be LED 5 on. Right, and then down here, this will be LED 6 on. Okay, now here we need to drag this action in here. Now at this point, I should basically do here, we're going to do LED 3 and we're going to turn it on. And I should, just to keep things consistent, or let's say guaranteed, we'll do this LED 5 and LED 6. We'll make sure they stay off. Okay, so that means that LED 3 will be on, but the other two will be off. And we can do the same kind of action, the same setup for all three of these states. LED 3 will be off. We want LED 5 on. Yo. LED 5 on, so turn that on, and then LED 6 will be off. And then for the last one, same thing again, drag that into here. This will be LED 3 off, LED 5 off, and LED 6 on. Now all we need to do is set up the events to take us into each of these. So we have our events, we just need to make the transitions. So from here, this will be the default. So if we get the next LED, it's going to go into LED 3 on. But from here, if we get all off, it will immediately go to here. Okay, so then from here, if we have next LED, it's going to go down to 5 on. Let's keep doing that for a second. Next LED goes down to 6 on, and then from here, next LED, it will wrap around and go back to 3 on. Now, just like we did here with the all off, taking us there, anytime I hit the all off button, I want to go back over here to all off and start everything again. So transition all off, takes us back over here, same thing here, all off, and there we go. So as I hit these buttons, if I hit the turn all LEDs off at any point in either this state, or this state, it will immediately take us over here and turn all of the LEDs off. If I hit the cycle to next LED button, it's going to take us here, so from here to here, turn on LED 3. If I hit the cycle again, it will go here, cycle again, go here, cycle again, follow this, go back up here, and just keeps going. If I keep hitting the cycle, it just keeps sort of cycling through the 3 LEDs. Let's see this in action. Now let me just turn on the camera. Let me just go over here and turn on my camera so you can see the cameras are looking at my Arduino. board, so you should be able to see, if I just sort of zoom in on the LEDs a bit, hopefully now pins 3, 5 and 6 should be these ones on the left, which there's a wire in the way, that doesn't help. Let me see if I can prop up the camera a bit better. Make it easier to see. Yes, that's probably a bit better. So that's pins 3, 5 and 6. And I hit play. Okay, so if I hit, you can see down here's the state machine, and up here's the, one thing I haven't done is I haven't connected these buttons to the actual state machine. That doesn't help me. Okie dokie, so yeah, I'll come here. Actually, what am I doing? So we go to the button. What we need to do is on click. I need to set up on click events. That's what's missing. So I can drag my Arduino for Playmaker into here on the on click handler. This is for the all off. Then I go to function and I go down to Playmaker FSM and I find the send event. There it is. And I type in here all off. And that needs to match. If I go back up here and have a look at the state machine in the events, that's this one, needs to match this event name. It must match it exactly. Let's do the same thing here. So I hit plus to create an event, a click handler. I drag the Arduino for Playmaker object into here. Then I go looking for the function Playmaker FSM send event, like that. And then in here I type next dash LED. Let me just check that I've spelt that correctly. Arduino for Playmaker, next LED. Yes, that's what it was, next LED. All right, perfect. So let me click on this so we can see the state machine here. Let me hit play. I'm using Control P for play. And there we go. Now if I hit next, we can see LED 3 is on. We can see in the state machine that it's in the LED 3 on state. Hit next again. Perfect, LED 5's on, and indeed we're in the LED 5 state. Click next again, and we're in LED 6. So everything's working perfectly, and if I keep doing this, cycles just nicely. And if I do all LEDs off, bang. So there we are, a very simple example. Okay, so just a quick summary. That was enough for one example. So what have we done so far? So we created this user interface. We created a state machine to control lights or LEDs. Over here we defined what the LEDs roles were and we labeled them. We did that once we created our Arduino for Playmaker object here. And we created events that we wired up to these Unity user interface buttons, and then we set up these actions to turn LEDs on and off accordingly. So that's for digital output. Notice that these were all digital output pin configurations. The next video will describe how to do analog output, where the LEDs could vary in their brightness. Thank you for watching, and if you like this video, hit the like button, and if you weren't so happy with the video, maybe leave a comment and tell me what you'd like me to do a bit better. Thanks for watching.